Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Community Foundation's Let's Talk for April 2023. Our speaker is Jeff Furman, who's the founder of Rejoice the Vote. My name is George Ferrari, and I serve as CEO of your Community Foundation. These programs are produced by Clara Kwaku, who is our Chief Inclusion and Community Engagement Officer here at Community Foundation. We've been doing Let's Talk gatherings and conversations since the beginning of the pandemic. This year, we're going to an every other month schedule. You can find resources and archives from previous Let's Talks on our website, as well as calendar and event notices for future Let's Talks. So we're going to go today with our topic of civic engagement. The next Let's Talk we have coming up is on June 13th. That's focusing on arts and culture, and the speaker then will be Ithaca Murals founder Caleb Thomas. So with that, happy that you're here with us. Do what you need to do with your camera. If you can keep your mic on mute, that helps to eliminate background noises. There will be some time to ask questions. You can put them in the chat at any time that you'd like. With that, Jeff, I'd like to invite you and thank you and for being part of this Let's Talk at Community Foundation. Rejoice the Vote. Honor the past, celebrate the present, challenge the future. That sounds like a job description for community foundations.
Great. So I'm up.
It's all yours, sir.
All mine. Well, thank you, Community Foundation, for this and for doing these talks and engaging the community in these important issues. I would also like to recognize your voice, your vote. There are several people from that organization, that fledgling organization, that joined the call, and they were having a meeting this morning. So they meet every 2 weeks, and they're an organization that's just working on democracy and voting here in Tompkins County, and it's headed by Ken Clark, who from the Human Rights Commission. So wanted to recognize them. It's such an irony today to be doing this because of what's happening in Tennessee, how appropriate this is to be having this on our agenda and thinking about where we are in our long road and that we've come and how far we have to go to get democracy in this country. So I just wanted to just mention it and have it in our minds. This is why we are doing the work of Rejoice the Vote in a country that's been around for several hundred years and is still working to get democracy where it should be. So I also wanted to encourage everybody on this call, if they have not seen the Dorothy Cotton movie, Move When the Spirit Says Move. It's really terrific, and she was certainly an amazing contributor to us being where we are today. I would like to mention that we're now beginning to do a second movie with photosynthesis, which did the Dorothy Cotton movie, and I see Deborah Horde from there on there waving her hand. That will be a movie that will feature young people, what young people are doing in this country around democracy, which is something I've learned a lot about over the last few months and actually a couple of years. I'm playing around with a title. I don't know what it'll be, but it's something like Those Young People, There They Go Again, Leading the Way. So that's just to just really honor, and it's an amazing things that is happening. I want to mention August 6th, where we got the county, Tompkins County, to proclaim August 6th a day to celebrate democracy in our county as a proclamation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to have a celebration, hopefully at Southside, on the afternoon of August 6th. August 6th was when the Voting Rights Act 58 years ago was enacted. And there is now, based on the county doing this, there's talk in the state to actually honor August 6th as well, and make it a statewide thing. So this is beginning to have some movements. So let me get into Rejoice the Vote a little bit and talk about these three things we're doing. So you can see Dorothy Cotton up on these posters that we have. The posters on the left are of people who worked to get the voting rights to happen, and some of them lost their lives in it. So I point out to Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was killed uh, before the actual marches, and it was the killing of Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was working on civil engagement that actually led to a lot of the Selma marches in the very beginning. And of course, there's Dorothy Cotton up in the corner, and Viola Louisa. She lost her life too. She was killed there because she brought two African American young men from Detroit to the march. She was shot and killed. And the poster on the right that we have from Rejoice the Vote are folks who worked on having women having the right to vote, which took about 70 something years from the first meeting in Seneca Falls. It's amazing how slow this seems to be moving. They took 72 years to have women have the right to vote once they became organized. So let's move to the next slide, please. So when I mentioned young people, there's a group of young people on the slide that are doing work now. Some of them you may have heard about. Latasha Brown. We did this about 5 years ago, and she's now a national figure working on voting rights. She co-founded Black Voters Matter and has really made a difference in the South about getting people out to vote. And Dakota Hall is now the head of the Alliance for Youth Organizing, and we're working with him on this second film. And the Alliance has about 15 organizations around the country that are part of it. The poster on the right has the two elderly women in that are started as young people. They started in their 15 years old and 20 years old and continue to work throughout their whole life on voting things. And we honor them along with two young people who are doing that work now. One of the questions we were asking, should the voting age be lowered in New York State? You could feel free to vote on the chat if you want to do that and see how that happens. Next slide, please. So the poster on the left obviously honors Dorothy Cotton, and I like it because I'm up there in the corner meeting with Congressman John Lewis, who I ended up spending several hours with in his office. And he was talking about his whole life in working on this. He started at 15 years old and continued to the year that he died when he was 80. And he was just so energizing and so positive and so wonderful to talk with. He even said he wanted to become a preacher, and he practiced when he was 15 years old preaching to chickens. So there's a lot in his life that's really fun to know about and really stimulated stuff. The one on the next poster on the right is something that Laura Bronca and I did last year to honor August 6th, and that led to our thinking about making it a county proclamation, which we ended up doing, and we'll use this poster and update it to the August 6th event that we're going to have now as a big celebration, as I said, at Southside in the afternoon. So next slide, please. So this is the proclamation, and it's not quite, it's what we submitted, and then it passed. And so the chair put her name on it. And this actually, we had about 9 or 10 speakers at the county legislative meeting, and that this passed, and now this proclamation has led to what's going to happen, hopefully at the state level when they do the proclamation just for this year. They're going to do it a year at a time, and it's the 58th year since the Voting Rights Act was passed. Next slide, please. So when we started this, Rejoice the Vote started in about 4 years ago. In the election of 2000, we did the Voting a City trophy. You can see a picture of that trophy. What was the voting a city in the state of New York? We did it for a large city and a small city. The large city that won was Albany. They got the highest percentage of eligible voters to the polls. And we had a press conference. I'm standing there with the mayor and the people who worked on the democracy issue. And it was a great press conference. And then the Saratoga Springs one, the small city one. So um, we did that presentation, and we are now going to do this again from the 2024 election that will be the votingest county in the state of New York. And so we're going to do that, and we'll show you that trophy in a moment. Next slide, please. So there's the trophy standing in front of Southside in our community. Will Tompkins County be the votingest county in 2024? It's a friendly kind of competition that we'll be doing with all the different counties. There are 60-something counties in New York State, and we will get the data. And one of the reasons of doing it for the county rather than the city, it really includes everybody. And also, the second reason is it's a lot easier to get the data on counties than it is cities. That's how it's presented by that. So that will be given in 2024, and hopefully that Tompkins County will be able to retain this this statue. It is a statue of a obviously African-American woman standing on the shoulders of the people that made it possible for her to vote. Some of their names that are on the side of the trophy. Next slide, please. So I started talking about young people. These are all the organizations I've been in touch with so far that are leading the way for the new energy around our democracy struggles. If you paid attention to what happened in Wisconsin, where the Supreme Court position was filled by a progressive person, it was because of these groups in Wisconsin. There are 3 groups in Wisconsin that made the difference. That person won by 11% in the votes, and they're out there. They work all year long on democracy issues, but they're also working in their communities on a lot of other issues as well. And these are very, very powerful organizations. If you followed the abortion issue, the group called Loud Light out of Kansas made the difference in what happened in that state. And there's a lot of data that comes out of what these groups are doing, and they're just phenomenal. They're run by people probably in the age range of 20 to 23 years to about 30 years old. They're run by groups that are completely diverse in both in gender, race, sexual preference. They are so diverse that they don't talk about diversity. It's not even an issue with them. It's just who they are and how they're living. It's quite amazing to see how well they work together. And so the movie that I was talking about will highlight that issue and compare it to what was going on in the 60s. I would say about 75% of these groups are run by women of color. and they just do a great job. And during election years, particularly presidential election years, they each of these groups are run on a budget of over $1 million because they know how powerful they are to make a difference in the states where they work. Next slide, please. So this is what I wrote in. I had to do it in the for the press when we gave out the civic engagement um, trophy um, 4 years ago, and so I just put this out here. Uh, it's um, it's just what I feel is what we're trying to do is celebrate uh, the and challenge. We're going to celebrate these young people, but also understand that it's challenging. And what we want to do here in Tompkins County, as an example, is have a lot of celebrations. So the one on August 6th will happen. We're looking to do one on September 15th also because that's the International Democracy Day. And we're thinking that what a wonderful, wonderful way to celebrate would be to have different cuisines at a really eating community fest where the cuisines were from all the cultures in the world, as many cultures in the world as we can actually do, here to celebrate democracy, to celebrate our community with our others from different areas of the world. So that's something that we'll be planning for to do in September 15th. We're also asking folks to celebrate in their neighborhood. One of my connections is through Ben and Jerry's. We will have Ben and Jerry's ice cream at Southside. But anybody that wants to run something in their neighborhood just to get to know neighbors, that's often a way as you can do voting engagement by relationship with your neighbors to increase participation. And so we will try to help and support that in areas anywhere in the county. So let's move to there's 2 more slides, I think. Let's move to the next one. These are posters that I have that are available. This is one of them. These are beautiful big posters. We've got 5 of them now that come from an organization called Amplifier Art. And this is one that we're trying to get around in as many places in the county that will put them in their window. They're available. Just reach out to me and we'll get them to you somehow. I'll show you, and here comes the last one, which should tie together the idea of the next generation and what we should be fighting for democracy for, and to continue to move it along in a positive direction. And so it's power to the polls, and that represents the future, that represents our hope, that represents everything that we're trying to do this and do this in a way that's full of celebration, joy, democracy, community, and taking care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. We know we have some questions that came to us before the start of this session, where there might be other questions and thoughts that you can put in the chat. Anyone's welcome to do that. Gloria will manage that. But one question I want to ask Jeff is, what is the current state of what's available for registration? What are the rules for registration in New York State? And what are some of the changes or improvements that are being considered or thought about?
Well, the one change that people don't know about is at 16 years old, you can register. It's a pre-registration, and so I have been talking to some schools about the idea of uh, every Monday of a school, when schools are in session, you call out the names of people who have just turned 16 and invite them down to the office to celebrate their birthday of the week before and register them to vote. And then I've also said maybe they could get their learner's permit too, so make it a little interesting and more fun. But those are kind of things that are happening that people don't really know much about, that you could kind of raise it and do it in some way. Then there's also questions about one of the things that people are proposing, which I think is a very good idea, is actually being able to vote even if you're incarcerated, not to lose that civil right. You want somebody when they get out, to be able to participate in their community, and that's just one thing that you would want people to be able to do, and even do it in prison, and not lose that right, and just to keep people engaged. So that would be another thing. And then there is the whole thing of statewide lowering the voting age to 16. Long time ago, uh, they lowered the voting age to 18. And it would be interesting to lower it to this to at least lower it to 16. It's one of the things I think would be interesting to think what people think about it in the community, because I think that can be done on the local level, where not just it doesn't have to be done at the state level. I know it doesn't have to be done at the federal level to have a be able to do that at 16 in any state that you're in. So
Right.
those are some of the different things that I think we could be doing. Also on college campuses, having places, more polls, and also allowing younger people to be poll watchers.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to turn it over to Gloria now to manage questions. I see Phoebe, your hand is up as well. Just a little logistical piece here. We normally do these from 12 to 12:30. If that's all the time you're able to spend with us, great. But we're going to slip over a little bit to about 12:40, 12:45, because I'm sure we're going to have more conversation. So Gloria, over to you.
Thanks, George. And again, thank you, Jeff, for being here this afternoon with us. Thank you all for joining on this call. We do have an opportunity for individuals or registrants to ask questions ahead of time. So I will go through those questions. We have about 3. And if Jeff, you answer the question in your presentation already, we can just pass them. So I'll start with question number 1. It says, I'd love to hear about the new coalition, Your Voice, Your Vote, the Tompkins Civic Engagement Coalition. You talked a little bit about that already, Jeff, but did you want to, or perhaps Dr. Clark can talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, give Dr. Clark something to do here. Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Clark, for showing up.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for all the work that you've done locally and nationally, and with regard to voting and civic engagement. Last summer, a group of us put our heads together to begin what is now called Your Voice and Your Vote, the Tompkins County Civic Engagement Coalition. This was an initiative that was done by the office that I am director of, the Human Rights Office for the county, as well as the Human Rights Commission or Advisory Office. And we gathered together a number of folks, individuals, a number of whom are here with us online, to begin to look at ways in which we could engage the public, and to look at how we might be able to further conversations about democracy and freedom, and the importance of voting, the importance of civic engagement, and how we might be able to engage the public around this. We are focused in a particular way on August 6th, which will be a Sunday, in which we will be on the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act, we'll be having, a major Celebrate Democracy event at Southside Community Center. And that will be taking place roughly around 2 o'clock, at least tentatively right now. We are looking at ways in which to join some of the organizations represented in our coalition. For instance, Phoebe Brown's Alliance for Families and Justice is having a tabling event on this coming Saturday from 12 to 5 on MLK Street, State Street, in which will be an opportunity to engage the public around these types of issues. That's and there's a whole lot more I could say, but I think that's enough, at least, to give you a sense of what we've been seeking to do over the last several months.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Is there a website or something you can share where people can go back to get more information?
Not as of yet. We hope to have that in place at some point in the near future.
Okay.
We've, just recently have kind of solidified our mission, vision, and goals for the organization, which, will, help to guide us and give us an arrow point for our efforts.
Perfect.
So the cyber world comes next.
Got it. Okay, Phoebe, which I call Auntie Fee for everyone who doesn't know, but that's my Auntie Fee.
Okay.
What's your question?
Hey, everybody. I really kept accidentally hitting the hand thingy because
Oh,
I wrote something in the chat about, the work that AFJ is doing about our campaign right now. One of our campaigns is to get the vote for people who are still incarcerated. But since I'm on here, I think it's important for us to really let also encourage felons to vote and also let them know they have the right to vote. Because a lot of times when I'm registering voters and they come up and they say, I can't vote, but they can. So I didn't really mean to raise my hand, but thank you. Thank you, Nisi.
And just to add to what Phoebe said about the felons, here's an example of how, the democracy struggle really happens. In the state of Florida, they had an Amendment 4 that passed that allowed people who got out of prison to vote. And that was passed. And then quickly, the reaction to it was, okay, they can vote, but they have to pay back all the court costs they had, they had to come up with thousands of dollars. They couldn't even find out where to do it. And they had to do that before they could vote. So here, the public, in a democracy way, voted to give them the right. And then the governments came up with a methodology to make it almost impossible for the felons to be able to vote. Now that is, to me, you watch that happen over and over and over again, and that's still the struggle. And it took years to get that to pass. It came up several times, and it was run by an amazing, person that stuck to it, and it got passed in a democratic way, and then got impossible. They put hurdles in the way, and we saw that all that existed, which actually led to the Selma March.
thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Auntie Fee. All right, I will go on to our next question. The question is, what difference does our vote make if districts have been redrawn and gerrymandered to divide and minoritize communities to one party's advantage?
Well, first of all, if you look at your local voting is an incredible place. So why it might be gerrymandered in your state for who goes to Congress, and that's an issue. but you do get to you vote for your local officials. You do get to vote for your mayors. You do get to vote for the people who will be making those decisions in the future. And you do, by supporting people that you agree with, even on a local level, you encourage more and more people to vote. So the gerrymandering, it started the very right as soon back in the beginning, the very first votes. There was one of the founding fathers started to gerrymandering stuff. There was either James Madison or Alexander Hamilton. I don't remember. I got them all mixed up. But they started gerrymandering stuff from the very beginning. So there are a lot of things that it'll take quite a while to overcome, and that's certainly one of them. But you could start very much in your local stuff. I think we get 5 or 10% of people that vote for school board candidates. And so that might be a rationale for feeling disempowered on a national level, but it shouldn't take it away your responsibilities to vote on a local level. And from doing that, you can grow to make change from that place.
Thank you so much. So our last question that came in ahead of time is, what best practices has Rejoice the Vote discovered as ways nonprofit agencies can contribute to increase voter turnout, especially among low-income families, low-income people?
One of the things that I've become so aware of is the culture we have in this country of not knowing your neighbors. It's not so much what you do as an organization, but we don't really know our neighbors, and it's I tell this story, and people might have to leave, but the story I know of somebody that I was working with on environmental racism, and she said we couldn't have conversations for a while because she was going to West Africa for the first time. And this is an African-American woman. She was very excited about going on the trip. And she replied that when she came back, I asked her how it was. And she said she had this epiphany because when she got there and they were going around in the bus on this trip with 20 people, she felt the poverty. She had sympathy for what seemed like poverty. And then after she was there, she began to understand what the phrase, it takes a village. It's the way people connected with each other. So I think it's just working on the way people will connect with each other in low income neighborhoods, in any neighborhood, and doing things as groups of neighbors is certainly a way to I think bring people together. And that's why I'm trying to encourage as many of us that have these little events around where democracy and voting is done in a joyful, celebratory way among your neighbors, with your neighbors, and that it's something that you learn to do together.
Thank you, Jeff. One of the things that is inspiring to me is your focus on this being a joyful activity. That sometimes, a lot of times when people think about civic engagement, they think about contention and strife and polarization. But you really want to focus on the joy that comes from doing this work as well, right?
Yeah, the joy and recognizing, and celebrating how much democracy we do have, and understand that a lot of people don't even have that. But it is to do it in a joyful thing. And I always tell people now at my age, I only want to do stuff that has some joy and celebration a part of it.
Good for you.
That's a personal thing. And I think it does tie. I mean, I've been involved with Ben and Jerry's for a long time, and we try to do things through celebrations and joy, and I think it's it's a nice way to continue rather than make it a chore. And actually, the voting has so much negativity to it. I mean, you're usually choosing between two candidates who's not as bad as the other one. So I want to try to just try to experiment with bringing a celebration to and see if we can make a difference that way. We'll see.
Great.
Right. I love
Thank you.
that. I love that, Jeff. So going back to the chat, it looks like that Laura made a suggestion. She says that organizations can keep a stack of voter registration forms, and those are available at the Board of Elections. And you can encourage your participants or your customers, clients to fill them out when they come for services or when they come for information to your agency. So that's one way. If you need to hop off, please feel free to do so. It's 12:39, but I want to see if there is, one or two more questions among you all. You can either write in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or you can just pop in and ask your question. So I'll wait about 10 to 15 seconds. And if no one has an additional question, George, will you close us out?
Sure. I want to thank you all for making time. Oh, David Kresko's hand went up there. David, do you have a question?
Yeah, just wondering what's happening with the schools, if the Ithaca City School District or any other youth-oriented organizations are being approached, or what's going on, because they have a lot of energy and time to organize.
Well,
Yes.
I mentioned trying to get them to do this registration thing. I have not been very successful at the schools, and I'm now trying to think about what I learned about young people is engaging them in civic education. It's not so much civic education, and they're not party, they don't care about a Democratic Party or a Republican Party, but they're issue sensitive. I read a lot about the issues that they actually really care about are the ones that were around for the 2022 election. With number one issue was abortion. Number two was economics. Number three was climate. And what we saw, a little bit in Tennessee and other places is also safety and gun control. So I'm going to try, and I'm just to instead of trying to organize it first, just trying to figure out ways where we could hear the voices of young people just about these issues, even if it's not a voting thing that has that real power. But what does the young people in this community think about in all these issues, and trying to engage them with the issues that they care about most, and that has come down. As I said, those are the top issues, pretty much across racial and gender lines.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank
Listening
you.
to each other and listening to the voices of young people.
Yeah.
This is as we're wrapping up our Let's Talk for the month of April, I want to thank Jeff and all of you for making time, and the folks from an organization I'm just learning about, Your Voice, Your Vote. Got a really good information in the chat about that, more to come, and some celebratory activities happening.
Yep.
Our next Let's Talk, there's a link in the chat now for that, which will be on June 13th. And the topic is arts and culture with Ithaca Murals founder Caleb Thomas. We hope you join us for that. And then the last link I'll put in the chat is a link to the videos and other PowerPoints from previous Let's Talks. We're happy you're with us today. We're always interested in engaging with our community, learning as a philanthropic resource and a way of building social capital with each other to listen to concerns and build equitable, just solutions in our beloved communities. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Take care, everyone.